Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MedTech Impact Podcast, where you get to hear from leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of medical technology. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And we're your hosts of the show.
So today on the MedTech Impact Podcast, we're delighted to be joined by Jeff Bennett, CEO and founder of Morari Medical. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, but this isn't the premature ejaculation podcast.
Wow, he's gone in there early. Oh my God. Straight off the bat, Jeff.
Hopefully not too early, Richard.
And we're trying to solve for early. We're trying to solve for early, Richard.
Okay, so it's going to be one of these shows. So strap yourselves in, listeners. We got a lot to cover here.
Sorry, I had to do it, Richard. You got to approach this topic with some humor and some jokes. So, bear with me there.
Well, honestly, Jeff, I love your approach. We were just discussing this before we came on live here. And, it's amazing that you are showing such leadership in this space. I am so excited that you've chosen us to come and share your story. But, the exciting thing about you, Jeff, is you've been on so many different platforms. Looking at your track record here, appearances on Jimmy Kimmel, appearances on the 2-Minute Drill. It's, again, that's an ironic name, I would say, as well. But yeah, we'll probably have a few of these pop up through the storyline here. Jeff, as always, when we kick things off, we do love to tell the listeners about the big problem you're solving. So, please tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in terms of the problem.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I've got over 25 years in the medical device industry. Started my career at Medtronic many years ago in the neurostimulation business for chronic pain. I then moved to Boston Scientific, where I spent 14 years there, 4 of which were in the urology business. And that's where I got exposed to sexual health and wellness and some of the unmet needs that exist. Is I had this crazy idea of some sort of wearable patch that guys could wear during intercourse to delay an ejaculation. And as I did more research on this topic, it became very clear that this is a big issue that guys generally don't talk about. And I brought the idea to one of my good friends at the time, who at the time was a Harvard-based urologist. I said, "What do you think about this idea?" He said, "Jeff, brilliant idea. But more importantly, do you understand how big of a problem this is?" And I'm like, "Well, I know I'd like to last longer sometimes." He's like, "Well, that's my point, is men don't talk about it. And I, as a doctor, don't even like to bring it up because I'm not happy with existing treatment options." And that's when he, informed me that 30% of men can't last more than 2 minutes in the bedroom. I'm like, "Come on, be honest with me." And he's like, "That's my point. We don't talk about it, and we need to." So I appreciate forums like this where we can talk openly about sexual health and wellness, and specifically around premature ejaculation, which is a focus of Morari.
And these numbers are staggering. So you mentioned that 30% figure, and I think I saw something on your website that talks about, a further 40% of men would like to last longer. So when you add that together, that's a big chunk of the population who would like to have a longer performance.
It is a big number, Richard, and that 30% are clinically defined. If these men were to go into the doctor, they would be clinically defined as having premature ejaculation, which, depending upon what publication you read, it could be anywhere from 2 minutes or 1 minute to ejaculation. We're going with that 2-minute category, and that's been validated in the medical literature. A lot of peer-reviewed papers talking about the prevalence of this. So in addition to the 30% of men that can't last more than 2 minutes in the bedroom, our research suggests there's another 40% of men that look to last longer. You add that to the 30%, and that's 70% of men looking to last longer over a period of time. And why, right? I mean, for many men, this is an issue for them. It's their manhood, it's who they are, and it's a relationship issue. But also, what we didn't appreciate early on was the impact on the partner. Ultimately, that partner, if someone's ejaculating within 30 seconds, is like, really? That's it? There's frustration, there's disappointment, there's that helplessness in terms of how do I help my partner? So again, that's what we're really trying to solve. It's really selling satisfaction at the end of the day, selling quality of life. Product is just a means to get to that discussion around overall well-being, overall wellness, overall health.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff, I just wanted to add on there. You touched on a little bit, like the psychological barriers that we create, and then clearly the impact of those psychological issues that we face when you have a condition like this. And so, I think in terms of the mental health, and that can be a vicious circle in terms of how it could lead to depression, but equally depression could be a cause of premature ejaculation. And so again, fantastic that you're kind of putting this up in the spotlight and giving people, the chance to have open conversations about this topic.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And honestly, it took me a while to get comfortable with this, right? I mean, I was in a nice job working at Boston Scientific, getting good pay, getting stock options, all that good stuff that you get with a medical device role. But I had this idea, right? And it's like, well, how do I execute on this? How do I tell my wife I want to quit my job and do this? How do I tell my family, my coworkers, et cetera, friends? And once I made that decision to do it and let everybody know, there was like this weight lifted from my shoulder. I felt like liberated. I felt, free. That vulnerability was no longer there, right? And it's been nothing but support. I haven't had anybody in the time that we've been working at Morari and even before that say, "What are you doing? You're wasting your time. This isn't a good opportunity." It's been quite the opposite. So maybe sometimes I'm too free in terms of how I, talk about things. And sometimes my 22-year-old daughter's like, "Dad, get simmer down a little bit. Easy, easy. These are my friends that are coming over. These are some boyfriends that are coming over." So just be mindful of that. So I got to tell myself that every now and then. So
This is so good, guys. And Jeff, I want to kind of have ask a little follow-up question too regarding some of these numbers and just talk about another side of the sexual health. But erectile dysfunction. When we were talking, because we met at MD&M Minneapolis a couple weeks ago, as you were walking the floor, and when we were talking, I thought it was really interesting because you said something to me, and you said that, well, actually, more people suffer from premature ejaculation than they do erectile dysfunction. And I think that that's more right normal, I guess, to talk about because you see all the ads on the TV all growing up. So now it's almost like that's normal. And you think those numbers are pretty big with how much it's promoted, right? Well, you mentioned that premature ejaculation actually impacts and affects more people.
yeah, absolutely. And again, that's all in the peer-reviewed literature. And premature ejaculation, regardless of what age group you're in, whether you're 20, 50, or 60, that prevalence number is roughly 30% for every age group. Whereas erectile dysfunction, the older we get as men, the more likely you're going to suffer from it or prevalent. So that's not the case with premature ejaculation. It's the same across all age groups. So when you just run those numbers, yeah, it's more prevalent than erectile dysfunction. And we know erectile dysfunction is a multi-billion-dollar space, right? I mean, it
Right.
was 25 years ago that Viagra was launched by Pfizer. 25 years ago, and multi-billion-dollar drug. There's a lot of other knockoffs, in terms of Viagra now that Viagra is generic. But since that time, there's been nothing significant in the male sexual health that's been introduced to help these men and these couples. Deal with this premature ejaculation issue. So, it's forums like this, and I appreciate the opportunity just to talk about premature ejaculation because it's you don't see TV ads. I was watching the World Series last night, and I saw another erectile dysfunction ad from Roe. This sparks, it's just put underneath the tongue and it absorbs quickly. Well, that's great. It helps just raise awareness for sexual health and wellness, but those are the type of things that we need to do for premature ejaculation because the numbers that it affects is significant. And ultimately, it's a big impact on partner satisfaction.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that this is obviously a big problem, and it's great that you're shedding light and building awareness around this problem. So now, how is Morari trying to solve the problem? What exactly are you doing? What are you building? What do you got?
Yeah, maybe before answering that, let me just talk a little bit about how people are being managed or treated today.
Sure.
So there are multiple different sprays and creams out on the marketplace that are basically desensitizers. And you rub that on the penis, and that numbs up the penis and allows you to last longer. Those products work for the most part, but it takes time to absorb. So if it's not absorbed completely, it can rub off on the partner, which leads to some issues there, right? So not ideal. So it's kind of a drug chemical free approach. On the other side, the FDA has not yet approved a drug in the United States for premature ejaculation, but what physicians know and what most people know is that if you're on antidepressants, they have a side effect of delaying an ejaculation. So that's a good side effect. So what physicians will do is they'll prescribe antidepressants in some cases to these men, which have that side effect of lasting longer. Well, you also have other side effects, such as you're causing maybe less sex drive or interest. There's dry mouth. There's all kinds of other issues related to antidepressant use. So those are really the two therapies, if you will, out there today: the sprays and creams, and then the drugs. What we're doing is something we believe unique, a technology platform that's been used in other areas of the body successfully for years, and that's neurostimulation. So we've got this patch that men wear during intercourse that delivers small amounts of electrical energy to the ejaculatory nerves. And think of it in simple terms as just turning the volume down of nerve activity from the penis to the brain. So ejaculation is all about a neural response. It's nerve signals from the penis to the brain. Erections, on the other hand, it's about blood flow in and out of the penis. We're not doing anything to address erections because the physiology of it is not nerve related, whereas ejaculation is a neural response. So again, we've got a patch that's placed in what's called the clinical term is the perineum. It's the area between the scrotum and the anus. My son likes to call it the gooch. Others call it the taint. Whatever word you want to use, that's the area between the scrotum and the anus. But that's where the ejaculatory nerves combine before going up to the brain to say, hey, this feels good. I'm going to trigger an ejaculation. So high level, that's what we're doing at Morari.
Okay, cool. So you've got this little patch. What can you tell us about this patch? What does it look like? How exactly does it work?
Yeah, so there's a couple elements of it. This right here is a small little pulse generator, we call it. Inside of this is a rechargeable battery. There's a Bluetooth chip. It's all the electronics necessary. This is reusable and rechargeable. So it has we estimate a 2-year lifespan for it. After each use, you got to clean it, and then we've got a charging station that you put it into, much like AirPods charger. So this is reusable, and what this does is it snaps into the single-use patch. I mean, it literally just snaps in like a ski binding, and then on the skin-facing side of the patch, you basically put it between the perineum, and in this case, I'm not going to put my perineum on camera here, but we'll just
don't.
Okay, thank you. But we'll just use this as a surrogate. So you put this on there, and there's an adhesive that's strong enough to hold it in place.
Yeah.
And then it conforms to as the body moves. And then when ejaculations occurred, you simply take it off, and it's you see how gentle it was. So strong enough to hold in place, but gentle enough where it's not going to rip off skin or be a pain like a Band-Aid, right?
Sure.
And then you remove the pulse generator. This is cleaned and reused, and this is thrown away. So it's kind of that razor blade business model. So, and it's all controlled by an app. When I push on this button here, you'll see a blue light, which indicates that it's powered on. And then with our app, you can then set settings that work for yourself, because Kyle, what works for you is going to be different than Richard than it is for me. And that's what most common question I get is, does this really work? It works for me. I don't know if it works for you because I don't know your body. You know your body. I don't know what you're looking for in terms of the benefit of this, because there's multiple benefits. Yeah, it may cause you to last longer, but also if it allows you to have a communication with your partner that you've never had before, I think that's a win, right? If we can foster a communication on a difficult topic like your sexual health, I'm all for that. And if this helps with that, great. But we believe there's other benefits, but only you and your partner can decide what those benefits are for you. That's not for us to say.
Sure. That's great. Well, Richard wants to know how much it is.
So we have what we call a starter kit that will be retail for $299. First, let me backtrack and say we are not commercial yet.
Yeah, true.
We'll be promoting or
It's
selling
important
it.
to say that.
So
yeah,
we have our submission at the FDA right now. They've got a couple questions that we're looking to finalize, but we hope to be on the market selling commercial units in Q1 of 2025. So just a few months away. So we'll have a starter kit that will have one of the pulse generators, 6 patches, a charging station, and that will retail for $299. Now, once those patches are gone, each additional patch would be $15 retail price. Some people say that's not enough. Others say it's too expensive. People that say it's too expensive, my response is, well, you can't go to a bar or restaurant and have a glass of wine or a cocktail for less than $15. So if you really want to end the night well, do you want another cocktail or do you want to use a patch that makes you last longer? That's for you to decide.
Yeah. It's a great way to put it, though. I mean, you got a consumer product at the end of the day. It's a medical device, but it's a consumer product, and it's definitely, you got to look at the numbers there, right? And I think it's well justified. And obviously, as you guys grow and as volumes increase, I mean, that's only going to help lower the cost, right? So, just incredible stuff here.
Similar to the Viagra story, I'll go back to that again. 25 years ago, Pfizer was selling that pill for what I understand to be $60 per pill, and it was not. I mean, you couldn't keep it on the shelves. So, yeah, Kyle, to your point, we expect our price to come down over time. Sure. But in our market research with men who experience premature ejaculation, they're desperate. They've tried everything. They've tried the pills, the sprays. They've tried the drugs. They're looking for hope. They're looking for something new. and they're willing to pay a premium for that. And not that we're trying to take advantage of that in any way, but we need to, make some money off of this. And then as we scale, that volume and that price will come down over time.
It's so fascinating, Jeff. I'm kind of intrigued to learn more about how you came up with this solution. In terms of I get your background and you've got this kind of inner understanding of the anatomy, but what's led you to this solution, and what's that process been like in terms of gathering feedback about a patient perspective on wanting to use a patch like this?
Yeah, well, it all started at Medtronic, and probably most of your audience knows who Medtronic is. And I was in the pain management area, product manager, and one of the products that we had was a neurostimulator that was implanted into the abdomen with electrodes placed near the spinal cord to manage chronic pain. So that's where I got exposed to neurostimulation as a technology to address various different conditions. And then you think of Parkinson's disease. You can manage Parkinson's symptoms through neurostimulation. You can manage arrhythmias, bladder control. Well, then I started thinking, well, why not help with sexual health and wellness? As I mentioned before, ejaculation is all about a neural response. So why not take that patch and put it down there and help these men that suffer from premature ejaculation? And I'm someone that I'd like to last longer. My ejaculation time hasn't affected my relationship at all. I, have no mental health issues with it, but I'm one of the 70% of men that want to last longer. And I knew that neurostimulation worked in other areas. So it was just kind of a natural thing to say, well, let's give this a try. So I got introduced to an advisor who was a neurophysiologist, explained to him what we're doing. He's like, this is a pretty easy to solve. It's neurostimulation. It's been used all over the body. Let's go. Let's figure it out. So long story short, I left Boston Scientific to focus full time on this opportunity. And here we are today, over 4 years later, months away from introducing the product to the world.
And again, it's kind of fascinating because you've been out there, as I said at the beginning, really just, putting this whole agenda and spotlight, getting yourself on these incredible platforms. And I think for the listeners who are going through potentially a similar journey, whether you're a startup or you're thinking about, becoming a founder, what's that process been like for you in terms of that journey of going, okay, I have this idea, now I want to obviously get it to that next stage?
Well, I'd be lying if I would say it's easy. It's not. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. So, I got some early guidance from a mentor who said, Jeff, if you're going to do this, just be prepared that it's going to take you twice as long as you think it's going to take, and it's going to cost you twice as much. I'm like, can't be that difficult. It's easy. Well, we're about there, right? So, part of that is, finding the right team to advise you, finding that product development partner, and then, finding investors and raising money is a challenge, right? This other advisor of mine said 100% of your time is going to be fundraising, 100% of your time is going to be running the business. And the fundraising in general has been difficult lately, but then you add on top of that sexual health and wellness. That scares off a lot of investors because that's not their thesis. They don't have experience in that. There hasn't been a lot of exits that you can point out to yet in the sexual health and wellness space. So we've been fortunate to raise our money, a little over $3 million through angel investors, friends and family. We ran a crowdfunding campaign and still are today on WeFunder, where regardless of your status, you can invest, which is a cool opportunity in crowdfunding because a lot of folks don't have opportunities to invest in up and coming companies, and crowdfunding allows anybody for as little as $500 to invest in the company.
Yeah, I think the crowdfunding is something we're seeing more and more of. And to your point, we love that whole accessibility piece in terms of, I think the investment side is obviously, often being closed to potential opportunities for other people who are not professional investors to get involved and support a product like this, which again, they could be a customer as much as they are investors. We love that approach. And you've raised, I think, nearly $1 million now, which is incredible, just seeing the support you're getting on that. Tell us a little bit more about, where are you now? What's that stage? Because you mentioned not being, FDA approved yet, but again, where are you in terms of the journey and getting to market?
Yeah, well, we completed first we did a proof of concept study just to prove the concept. Then we did a feasibility study, and that all led to us coming up with the final design. So we froze our design about 1.5 years ago to go through all the formal testing that needs to occur. And because we're delivering energy to tissue, we have to get FDA clearance from a safety perspective. So that required a number of different studies that we needed to do, completed all that, and at the end of June, we actually submitted it to the FDA. We heard back from the FDA in September. There's a number of questions that they need more clarification on, and literally we're working on that right now. So we expect to be able to submit our formal response back to the FDA by the end of December. there's 30 days that the FDA has to come back with yes or no, or hey, you have even more questions. So we're hopeful that we'll be shipping revenue units in February. I'd love to say, hey, February 14th, Valentine's Day, here's a good time to order a product. And we're going to take a run approach, Richard. We're not going to launch nationally right away. We've got a lot of things that we want to test out, messaging, logistics, shipping, all that kind of good stuff before we pull the trigger on going national. So it'll be a crawl, walk, run approach. We'll launch to 100 customers first, then 1,000, and then we'll continue to open up other geographies.
I'm just curious too, when you talk about the 100 customers here, how do you go about that? Is there some sort of like place people can go right now to see if they're the right fit for that? How are you bringing in these 100 customers?
Yeah, there's not a place yet. And we've got a website, morarimedical.com, but we'll be building an e-commerce site where people can go to that website directly. So you will not have to go to a doctor, no prescriptions necessary. This is an over-the-counter product, right?
Okay.
So we'll be selling the product directly to the consumer. There'll be no reimbursement. This is cash pay. Yep. So consumers will make them aware of this site that they can go and receive or place the order, and then they'll receive that starter kit that I mentioned to you earlier. So that's the process. So we're right now working to put a training video together, final imagery. So we've got our branding behind us here, and you see the rabbit. We're trying to take this approach from a messaging standpoint to be kind of playful, but also serious, right? Because this is, as we've talked about and joked, you got to joke about this before you can have a serious conversation. So we want to have this playful, serious tone. We don't want to be seen as a medical device, in the sense that you don't need to go to the doctor, a prescription isn't necessary. And we also don't want to be seen as a sex toy. And nothing wrong with sex toys. It's a $6 billion space, right? But we're kind of in this middle area where we're trying to solve for a true unmet need, but we got to have fun with it, right? Because sex is fun. Everybody does it. If it wasn't for it, we wouldn't be here today. So have fun with it, experiment, play around with your partner. This is a partner tool. Our initial target market isn't a 20-some-year-old looking to hook up with someone on a one-night stand. That's not it, because that person they're hooking up with is going to be like, you're going to do what with what and put where? No, forget it. But our initial target market are those couples in committed relationships that maybe have tried sexual enhancement aids or toys before. If they've done that, they've broken down that barrier of being adventuresome and maybe trying something new into the bedroom. So we believe that that's kind of that initial segment for us.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And it's interesting too, because, just thinking about as you're talking, some of the conversations that I've even had with some of my friends and some of the things that they've told me, obviously privately about their situations. What's incredible is that I think their partners and significant others there, they are like, hey, we don't care if you take something. We don't care if you use something, because at the end of the day, it's benefiting them and it's giving them a better experience. It's allowing them to be more intimate, right? And be closer from that standpoint. So I think too, that because there's now that more normalcy around, at least from an erectile dysfunction standpoint, there's just, it's more normalcy, right? So I think that market adoption, the hope is that actually it'll be a lot faster for you, right? I think people are going to be more open, and I think you're right. How you're approaching it and just even starting conversation around it is brilliant. Ultimately, you'll have your e-commerce site, but I would imagine too, there's an opportunity to be in every CVS, Walgreens, Walmart. That must be a part of the business too.
Yeah, that's a later phase for us, Kyle. But absolutely, retailers, you look at Target, Walmart, CVS, Walgreens. I mean, what used to be just the condom aisle is now maybe a traditional sex toy aisle. You can buy vibrators or penis rings, lubes, whatever, all on the shelf at Target right now. So that's great, right? I mean, Best Buy was selling, sexual health and wellness products on their website, everything from vibrators to penis rings. So, Saks Fifth Avenue, Bloomingdale, all these big box, their website, just type sexual wellness, and you'll be amazed at what's being sold out there. So that's really helping the industry as a whole. And what we're trying to do is try and educate as well, educate and awareness, because a big part of our launch is the product, yes. But it's also about setting expectations. And that's what I want to make sure that on this webcast or podcast, I mentioned that, because if you're hoping to go from 1 minute to 10 minutes overnight, that's not going to happen. It's going to take some time. You got to get used to the settings, figure out what works for you, get the position placement. And B, your partner probably doesn't want 10 minutes of penetration as much as you think they may want it. They're not looking for that much. And if you want your partner to have an orgasm through penetration alone, unlikely that that's going to happen, because only 20% of female partners, based on our market research, can have an orgasm through penetration alone. They want longer time, but not 10 minutes. And there's other ways to get your partner to orgasm through penetration alone that the partners are looking for.
I think we can all agree, or well, I don't know, not all of us agree, but I will say that yeah, you constantly like, let's not take forever here, all right? So you're so spot on, right? It's like a balancing act where it's like you don't want it to be too long, right? But you certainly don't want it to be too fast. So really good stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, it's individual, right? I mean, there's many guys out there, if it takes 30 seconds, they're like, sweet, I can go do whatever, right? Well, then are they really meeting the needs of their partner? Probably not, right? But then there's guys on the opposite side, it takes them too long. And is there something we can do on that? Maybe. Neurostimulation could help with that. We haven't really focused on that. But again, it's just the partner experience. And I can't stress enough is, Morari is focused on the partner. And whether that partner is male or female, we believe there's a big opportunity in the gay community for the product. That's another area of focus for us. Different messaging, tactics, etc. But that partner could be male or female.
Nice.
And as Kyle mentioned, this is a balancing act. So, your line there is ready, set, slow. But of course, as you're going to market, you're trying to get a little bit faster. So, it's fascinating, like when you're talking about the customers and the patients and the people you want to help. What would be that messaging just now in terms of like engagement, whether that's for feedback or whether that's potential partners? What would be that sort of call to action right now of what you're looking for?
I mean, really two things. One, it help us spread awareness, right? Be comfortable having discussions, whether it's your neighborhood groups or your friend groups, the guys' weekend, bring it up and just see how people react and have the conversations. And like, God, I heard this guy on this podcast and he was talking about some electrical thing that you put down in the gooch. What's that all about? I'm not putting anything. I'm not, electrocuting my balls. No, we're not shocking anything. We don't electrocute anything. We're delivering neurostimulations, which have been proven to be safe and effective in all kinds of other areas of the body. So that I think is number one. Number two is, have those conversations with your partner now, right? Don't be afraid. I mean, if you're not having that communication, there's an opportunity here. And again, if we can have our product help in that communication, great. I was at a conference last week and, during some time I went and talked to 20 different women that were manning or stationing the exhibit booths. And one of the things that I wanted to get feedback on is, would it be helpful if we could create some tips and tricks of how to engage or have conversations with your partner and how to approach them? And all 20 of them were like, absolutely. Give me something and some talking points and some tips where I could engage my partner so that we could feel comfortable with this, because ultimately we both need to be bought into this, right? I don't want to, this one woman was like, I don't want to go home and see this product on my shelf and be surprised that my partner bought this. I want us to research it together, buy it together, experience it together, and benefit together from it.
Wow. I love that approach. And real quick, I do want to add, Jeff, because we have several, obviously, different types of medical technologies and founders come on the show. One is company Signati. They do a new way of vasectomies. And actually, what I really liked about Billy Prentice, their co-founder there, I really love how he actually said that this is actually as much of a woman's health kind of product as much it is as men's health, right? Because it's saving women from having to do other procedures or use other forms of IUDs and stuff like that, right? Birth control. It prevents them, right? And it makes it easier for men. So I like that approach. I really think that's brilliant how you're kind of looking at it on both sides. This is women's sexual health and wellness as much as it is men's. So I'm glad you brought that up.
100%. And the other example that I would use on that, Kyle, is urinary incontinence. I mean, urinary incontinence affects millions of women worldwide, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that also has an impact on the sexual health and wellness of that couple. It affects the guy, right? If there's urinary incontinence, I mean, that may not be, a pleasant thing for the male partner. But
Mm.
so that issue that affects the woman in terms of the physiological in the body impacts the couple sexual health and wellness. So that's where we're really, again, it's expectation setting, it's awareness, it's education. Because again, for us, let's say not everybody's going to benefit from this product. I mean, you could be 350 pounds. It's probably not going to work for you. We don't have enough power in that battery to get through all that fat in the perineum that may be there. So there are some men that are going to not benefit from it, and we need to educate. And if they want to buy it, great. But please don't go and our reviews and give us negative reviews. We've tried to say, here's the customers that it's good for, and here's who it's not. And because this is a consumer product, we're going to be facing a lot of reviews out there, positive and negative. So that's a challenge for us as a company, because my background is medical devices. And as you guys know, launching to a doctor is entirely different than launching to a consumer. Consumers are going to have, no hesitancy to post some things online, and we got to be able to prepare for that and respond.
Yeah. And people are more likely to complain, right, and give a bad review than a good review too. So makes sense.
Sure.
I mean, the other part again is like, you're just being featured on all these big platforms. So, I mean, again, take your hat off. Kyle and I, it's incredible that we get some guests on, and it's of course focused around the technology, but you're just really driving this whole agenda. Like, you're really providing a platform for people to engage. Look at some of these platforms you've been on, and Fast Company could be a good name for a forum to get people involved, because you're providing this agenda, this kind of opportunity for people to discuss it. I don't know if we're ever going to have like Tupperware parties or patch parties, but when it's kind of a personal area where you're wanting to use this. But I take your hat off, and it's kind of interesting how you take this to market, Jeff, because the product is clearly the commercial side, but you are such a leader in this space. I'd love to know what lies ahead when you think about that. How would you like to position the company, in 3 to 5 years' time?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's restoring confidence in sexual health. That's our mission, right? I mean, our first product is called More, MOR. And the idea behind that is, I can't tell you what your more is. I don't know, Kyle, if you want more time. Richard, I don't know if you want more duration, more intimacy. We're going to give you a product that's been approved by the FDA from a safety standpoint, and you go figure out your more between you and your partner. We'll educate you. We'll give you the tools, but you figure out your more. I don't want to know your more. That's private. That's for you and your couple. So more is our first product, but there's technology platform that we believe can help in some of the female sexual unmet needs that exist as well. Whether that's orgasm, long enough to orgasm. Could we adapt this technology to those areas as well? Yes. So we want to, build a portfolio of different products. And ultimately, we're looking for an exit. Probably I'm not a medical device company per se, but more of a consumer goods company that may be in the sexual health and wellness space. I think it was 4 years ago, I was one of 4 companies that was invited by Procter & Gamble to pitch in Las Vegas at their Consumer Electronics Show booth for various different products. So one of 4 companies, I'm in Procter & Gamble's booth. We won the pitch. Here I am saying in one of the arguably the largest consumer good companies in the world, saying ejaculation, penis, sex, and we won the pitch. So to me, that was one of those aha moments to say, wow, if Procter & Gamble can be interested in this and allow me to be in their booth and say penis and a vagina, why can't anybody, right? So that kind of led us to consumer company. That's really kind of where we're looking for partnerships. Mm-hmm. And hopefully down the road, an acquisition. But our focus isn't on getting acquired right now. It's about driving value for the business, and then acquisition and exit will come when it's time.
And what are you doing? Are you raising any capital right now? Are you hiring any people?
All the above, Kyle. Here, always raising. So yeah, we're looking to raise $4 million Series A raise. So we've got enough cash to get us through FDA clearance, and then it's inventory buildup. It's adding people. My first commercial hire is going to be a commercialization lead that has experience in branding and direct to consumer. We're very heavy on the med device side right now in terms of our experience, and we need that consumer experience. So that $4 million of a Series A raise will help us, add to the team. Customer care lead, super important, right? We need someone that understands how to respond to customers and point them in directions that maybe we can't help them with in terms of the product. So that will be an important position. And then it's the marketing. I mean, this is consumer goods, so it's going to be expensive to market, and we're going to try to be, are there some influencers out there that have large followings that maybe perhaps willing to talk about the product, much like Jimmy Kimmel. A few years ago, to my surprise, I woke up one morning and my commercialization advisor is like, Jeff, you and the company just got roasted last night on Jimmy Kimmel. And I'm like, oh shit, what does that mean? So I finally, found the clip, and for 1:46, Jimmy Kimmel in his monologue that over 2 million people view each night talked about me, the company, made fun of me, talked about the product, made fun of me in a good way, acknowledged the problem, and brought awareness to it. So it's people like that we would love to help facilitate the conversation. So anybody out there that knows Jimmy, we tried to reach out to him to say, hey, get us on when we launch the product, and you can make fun of me all you want, but we can have a serious conversation. Howard Stern, he talks openly about his premature ejaculation. I don't know if it's a bit or not, but it's, folks like that, and, local micro level influencers as well.
Sure. Well, that's fantastic. And so as you look to hire people, or if anyone's maybe interested in investing, I mean, how do they get in touch with you, and how do they, follow your company so that they can be there and ready to apply once you start opening those positions?
Yeah, we've got pages on all the various different social media platforms. So Twitter, LinkedIn, et cetera. Follow us. That would probably be the best one. If anyone's interested in investment, you can reach me directly at jbennett at morarimedical.com, jbennett at morarimedical.com, and we can have that conversation. So we've got investor decks and all kinds of different information that we can share with you. But yeah, we're right now, trying to raise for that commercialization phase. I'm not going to say the hard work's behind us, because commercialization isn't going to be easy. It's going to take time and money, and there's going to be bumps in the road for sure. But it's a different level of spend and what we do with that money compared to where we've been so far.
Brilliant, Jeff. This has been absolutely fantastic having you on here, and just can't thank you enough for your leadership in this space. It's so needed, and we're true believers in what you're doing, and Kyle can't wait for this product to come out.
Yeah, of course. The both of us. Go on.
Yeah.
So the typical response, Richard, it's not for me, it's for a friend. I'm asking for a friend.
It's always that third party. Yeah.
That's why Richard wanted to know how much it was.
Yeah, that's right. Over the years of doing this, I think I've kind of developed this weird skill of maybe seeing who is actually really interested in this after you joke about it. Kind of the facial expressions change. Like, okay, we joked about it, but tell me more. How do I get this product? How much is it? So, Richard, I don't know. You might be at the top of the list there.
Taking notes. Don't you worry. Awesome, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thank you again to Jeff Bennett, CEO and founder of Morari Medical. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the MedTech Impact Podcast. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meaglejohn. Until next time, keep innovating.